It's quite unexpected, but how would you react if I told you that you were wrapped in a bamboo mat and thrown into the river while everyone else slept? You probably wouldn't believe me, but that's what's happening now. It's too bad. As strange as it sounds, somehow the burglars broke into our hero's house, and now he's surrounded by darkness and he's decided he needs to find out what's going on. And looking out, he saw a huge forest in which it was too bright for night, and with his eye, which shone through the wrapped blanket, he saw some strange flowers and strange beetles flying all over the neighborhood. The whole area was too strange, and our hero could not understand where he was now, because he had recently slept in a warm bed at home. And the fact that he's suddenly in the middle of the woods right now, and running to the lake, he saw himself in the reflection, but he didn't look like a man, but some kind of egg. But as he spun around, he suddenly realized that in his reflection, it looked like he was wearing some kind of strange costume now. Well, as soon as he realized this whole situation, he suddenly freaked out and started screaming. Why the hell is it really him, and what the hell is going on with him? And at that moment, something strange appeared in front of his eyes. After all, there was some message in front of him that showed his current level and normal skills, and that he was now not a human, but a dragon egg, and the statuses of his condition were now normal. And suddenly he heard a voice in his head telling him that he was really a dragon egg, and that he was now a F-rank monster. But our hero couldn't understand why he had some strange voice in his head. But the mysterious voice went on to say that this is how the divine voice skill works, and it can explain things like status and items. Running from place to place, our hero in the guise of a dragon egg could not understand whether it really is not a dream, or maybe it's some kind of a strange prank. But the voice in his head continued to say that he cannot give such explanations. But still our hero continued to shout that he did not joke with him like that, and is now someone watching him from somewhere who calls himself the voice of God. Well, when he realized his situation, he became angry because he didn't care one way or the other. He didn't even have hands to grab his head in despair. Well, he's got a lot of problems, but first he's got to figure out what's going on, and he didn't fully understand. But it's like he's become the egg of a monster. Yeah, and he's got a tail too. But the voice in his head kept saying that he's a dragon egg and he's a dragon baby in the early stages of development, and that his brain is underdeveloped, and all he can do is spin in place. But trying to break his shell, a voice in his head started saying that he would die if he broke the shell, and many eggs don't survive to adulthood because their insides are really tasty, and it's common for an adventurer to meet an egg and break it. But the hero could not understand what he meant, and whether he simply struck. But the voice continued to say that he will now decipher everything to him. If the traveler tries to return the egg, the parents will follow him by smell and try to kill him, because it is not a very reasonable action. But at that moment, while he was pondering why he was in this situation, in some strange creature was at his back and watching him, and that horrible creature was a dark worm, and it was level 3 of 8. And as soon as the huge worm gave out a huge scream, our hero turned around and saw that in front of him now stands a huge creature that just wants to eat it. And with a shout in mockery, he moved from his seat and started running away from that monster with all his legs. As he continued to run through the forest, he kept shouting that this was no longer a dream, and what the hell was going on, and what the hell was that thing? But a voice began to say that it was a dark worm, a giant hornworm that had grown fangs, and that dragon eggs and favorite food. But continuing to run away, our hero realized that now he is in a very bad situation, because with such a body and such legs, he cannot even run normally. And when he tripped over a branch, he suddenly started rolling down the slope at full speed. And once he finally stopped, the voice in his head began to say that he had obtained a level 1 fall resistance skill, and rising to his feet, he realized that meant the fall had been a bit rough. His hit points had dropped slightly from 5 to 4, and that his spinning skill had now become 2nd level. But at that moment, turning around, he saw that from behind the bushes again jumped out that huge worm, and began to catch up with him at full speed. But still realizing that he slightly though and broke the distance between them is because he rolled. And whether it means that he is faster, when rolling and starting to use his rotation, he began to gain speed. and accelerating at normal speed, he realized that it was really fast, and maybe he could escape like that, and that he would only be because he was rolling downhill. Well, still, the monster that chased him did not retreat for a moment, and our hero could not understand why he was attached to him. And what was strange, that they have been running for a long time from the creature and does not slow down. And now he realizes that he can't escape and what to do now. But now he has to think about it, because there must be something he has to do. Of course, eventually he does hit a dead end and he turns around and sees that damn worm and that he's chasing it, and I just think it's a regular egg. And smelling that the worm is preparing to pounce on him, suddenly our hero jumped up shouting that he is still a man inside, and accelerating, he began to attack him back with his spinning skill. And after hitting the worm several times, his life was reduced from 8 to 5, and although realizing that this would not be enough to win, our hero continued to beat his enemy and hit him a few more times. Our hero was ready to crush his enemy. And eventually, after a long battle, he still managed to destroy the worm before he realized what was happening. But suddenly our hero saw that his shell began to crack, and looking at the notification window, he realized that his hit points were almost over, and that if it wasn't for that worm not cushioning the fall and not overestimating his resistance to the fall, he would have died as well. But still, he's okay in the end, and the fact that he somehow survived in such a situation but suddenly looked up, he saw in the notification window that he had gained 12 experience points and realized that now everything was happening, just like in the game. But the divine voice in his head began to say that the rank of walking egg had evolved, and that the dragon egg that glassed the maximum level and the conditions of evolution had been met, and the fact that he was able to get the maximum level for killing one worm, and the fact that he didn't seem to fully understand what this creepy thing was, and the fact that it's a miracle he survived at all. And besides, he had gained a double experience, and that he now had an astounding new name, Stray Egg. But still he realized that some sort of evolution had been mentioned, and meant he would finally hatch into a huge dragon. But the divine voice began to ask our hero if he wanted to see evolutionary options, and if there were 2 different species. But our hero realized that it was a pretty normal system now, and that the voice had become quite talkative, and that he wanted to become a normal creature, and that he hoped it wouldn't be something like a big egg. But the notification window showed him that there is a small dragon that has rank D, and that it is a type of small dragon. Although it is larger than a bear and travelers are afraid of it because of its fiery breath, and seeing this, our hero was surprised that such a dragon can easily beat a worm, as it happened recently. But the divine voice went on to say that there is also a rank B dragon child, and he is very tasty, because of his soft meat, especially good with sauce. But great, so scared after all this said, our hero could not understand if this is some kind of cooking show. But the divine voice continued to say that his paw and claws are small. He can rather be called weak. However, he has high potential, but he is hunted by most monsters and travelers. And when he heard all this, our hero decided that he would choose the little dragon, because he wasn't going to become someone's snack. But suddenly something strange began to happen. The divine voice kept repeating and repeating to become strong, to become strong. But our hero could not understand what was happening, and yet it did not end. These voices were very many, and they kept repeating and repeating to become strong, and that the number 1 goal now is to become the best. So there is only one choice: the hard way. After all, he has big plans for him, and he must not disappoint him, but our hero did not understand who he is. And what is that voice? It was over as quickly as it had started, and the voice was gone just as quickly as it had started. And the voice was gone, but looking at the notification window, he saw that the divine voice had become level 2, and he couldn't quite figure out if that meant it was the divine voice too. And it felt like someone was trying to force his will. It was eerie. But most likely it's a divine voice. And apparently this skill allows you to talk to this self-proclaimed god. If you think at first he was using it as a game guide, it's actually someone following him from somewhere. But after he calmed down, he began to think about what he should do now, because he was really scared before, and whether this means that his choice was wrong, and maybe he should choose the dragon child instead, because it should be more useful in the long run. And yet the choice has been made. Our hero has decided that he will take that. Wow has great potential, and if he is told to become the strongest dragon child, it is the only choice. And cracking his shell, he made the decision that he would choose the dragon child. And eventually he turned into a dragon child, and his status was normal. And level 1 of 25, his rank was Son of the Dragon King, walking egg resistance to physical damage, level 2, and resistance to falling level 3. And lastly, his attack increased to level 6. I looked around and he could see his paws and legs, and he could finally move around normally. And the first thing he did was find the nearest river and finally remove his thirst. From sitting on the lawn, he decided that with his humanization, it was time to clean up his act. And the first thing he has to do is definitely in a world with game elements like experience and status windows, and the fact that in addition appeared here, he is in the form of an egg and apparently dragon. And if you defeat enemies, he will get experience that will help him to pump, and that it is an obscure divine voice or something that told him to become the strongest, and that he doesn't quite understand why, but he thinks the divine voice is probably responsible for the current situation. And could it be the key to everything, and he can't even hunt with those hands, but it looks like he's going to have to solve this mystery alone. But as soon as he turned his head, he saw a lot of demonic worms that popped up from all corners of the forest, and our hero realized that today is definitely not his day. And looking at them, he started yelling that, did that guy call his family? And that they had any idea how hard it was to beat one of them, so he wanted to say, but the situation is different now, because he has his secret skill, baby fire breath. And immediately after the huge explosion, our hero began to repel all his opponents in different directions, because he realized that his body is exactly moving as he wants it to. And the fact that it is exceptionally impossible for him to lose given who he is now, and destroy a few monsters, he still got his 48 experience points. And as he continued to fight, our hero gained more and more experience from destroying these creatures. Eventually, after a long battle, he was still able to raise his level to 15 and realized the fact that he didn't make the last spurt, and so he's about to evolve again. And now his goal is to become the best, and that he wants to become even stronger. And even though he doesn't know how he'll decide when he's strong, 3 days later, our hero could hardly move through the forest because he realized that he could go so crazy and that he underestimated how difficult it is to survive here. And even if he decided to get stronger, what is wrong, you ask, because in this fox, to find food is very difficult, and that he could not find any fruit or berries, so he ate mushrooms, but it almost killed him. Eventually, our hero realized that he was starving, and he thought that since he was a dragon, everything would be okay, and was too naive, and that the mushrooms were so toxic that he even got resistance to poisons, and in addition he got one unflattering title son of the dragon, walking egg, and clumsy. Also, monsters always run away when they see him, and the only things that dare to approach him are dark worms and other monsters, and that he gave in to hunger and tried to eat one of the worms, but now he's trying to erase that memory from his mind because it was such a horrible nightmare. But still, due to his high level, he can easily beat monsters with his dragon blows, and everything he does, little by little, makes him stronger. And besides, our hero realized that he was very lonely in this vast forest, and that divine voice is not at all verbose, and he left him alone in the forest in a full monster, and he would like him to understand how to live with such feelings. But suddenly our hero got a new skill, resistance to loneliness. But that's not what he meant, because he doesn't need that kind of sympathy, and he doesn't want to become someone who can stay single. He just doesn't want to be alone. But suddenly he began to remember how he got to the very first place, because he can't remember his previous life at all, and he knows he was human at least, and whether he was sent to a distant land where he was experimented on in a creepy lab. But also, at that moment he again received new knowledge, but what an idiot. And eating the last bits of his food, he realized that, however, Hunting monsters from loneliness is pretty rough, and he wasn't getting levels past 20 and that he was really depressed. But a strange thought began to visit him, and he wondered if there were people in this world. But it can't be that monsters are the only creatures in this world. And falling to the ground from the terrible realization, he began to panic because he wants to meet people. But suddenly he heard some strange sounds nearby and began to pay attention to it, raising his head. But still the sounds were too strange for him to make out. But he realized they were human voices and moved from his seat and started running in that direction that it was definitely human voices, but he didn't understand their language, but that it was definitely human. And looking out from behind the bushes, he saw 3 men moving through the woods, and that our hero noticed that the 3 of them were a girl, a man, and an old man. But the hero could not understand what to do. After all, he is a monster, and whether it is safe for him to go out and show himself among these people. But still, if given the chance, he should take it, and who knows when he will see people again, and that he may look really creepy now. But he will be able to show them that he has no hostile intentions, and he'll look as harmless as possible so they think he's friendly. And once he got outside, people noticed him, but he still decided to use his whistling sound skill. But as soon as the hero looked at them closely, he saw that they were wearing armor and robes and these fantasy-style clothes. And then he realized that this is really that kind of world. And as soon as he saw the smile on the face of one of the men, he realized that it looked like his plan to befriend them was working, because the man smiled and approached him. And even though he looks very nice now, he suddenly noticed that the man had started to draw his weapon. And swinging it, he gave a very serious blow to our hero, causing him to fly off to the side. And falling to the ground, he could not understand why they attacked him, because he had done nothing. But the old man began to take out his staff and point it towards the hero, who was lying on the earth. And a moment later, the old man landed the hardest blow on his mom. And immediately after the attack, the notification system started showing our hero what his status was at the moment, and that he had received air cut and magic. And what I wanted to do was almost disobey him, but he still couldn't figure out what to do now. Continuing to lie on the ground, suddenly, our hero realized that he had seen the notice that he was a dragon child, and that it was very tasty due to the soft meat, especially good with sauce. And remembering the words of the divine voice that told him he was a monster after all, and that he's about to be eaten by humans right now, raised his head. He saw a still small girl. Her name was Mary. She was an earthly person. The other man's name was Dogermalt, and his race was also Earthman. But the last old man, whose name was Gruns, was also an earthly man, and all 3 of them were 2nd level. And crawling further and further away, our hero realized that he is in a very bad situation, because one more such blow and he will turn into dinner. And the fact that he can't even move because of the pain and paralysis. But the man was already swinging his sword to finally finish off his prey. But at that moment a girl appeared in front of our hero, who threw away her bag and threw out her hands. And as soon as she looked at him, he couldn't understand what was going on. And the fact that it's a girl who protects him and says to her partner something he can't understand, because it's a human language he's not yet adapted to. And at that moment, things started to take a different turn, and those 2 men left with laughter on their faces, and our hero realized that everything was finally going to be okay. But here the girl began to use some strange magic and mumble something under her nose that our hero could not understand. But as soon as she put her hands on our hero's body, he realized that his pain was going away, and that she was using the magic of recovery. But as soon as she said a few words that our hero didn't understand, he began to wonder if she was saying, "Sorry, you're okay," or something similar. And once the tears began to flow, our hero could not understand why they do not stop, because it had been so long since someone was kind to him, and that he craved companionship more than he thought. But looking at the girl, he realized that she misunderstood everything, and that he cries not from pain. And the fact that she's such a sweet girl, she went so far to protect him, and she still has the ability to worry about him. And after she restored his life, the pain was almost gone, and that if she didn't catch up with the others who were in trouble. But our hero decided they wanted to hear her voice a little more. A little more would be great, if he could keep lying in the same place. And at that moment, our hero saw a notice in the window that he has a special skill called lying, and that feminine voice, he is such a glorious personality. He knows exactly how to make our hero feel guilty. Well, looking at the girl, he could not understand where she came from, and if there was a village or something similar nearby, he would want to know where. And he could be at a stray cat that would get attached to a man who fed her, and maybe she would let him follow her under such a pretext. But suddenly our hero heard very far away some strange roar, and that it came from the direction where those two men had gone. And as soon as the girl blew up, she started saying it was like screaming. But still our hero didn't realize that she would go there because it was dangerous, and she should have realized when she heard the eagle, and that it was different from the small creatures that live here in the forest, and that she could be torn to shreds. And looking at the fact that she really decided to go there, the hero realized that he cannot let her go, because it is not an opponent that she can cope with, and if she goes there, she will die immediately. But trying to get up, still the effect of paralysis still acted on our hero, and that he was still paralyzed. But the girl didn't wait, and started running in the direction where the screams were heard from. And the fact that this girl even spent her mana used it on our hero to recover, and she will not be able to do anything getting there. The hero realized that even if he completely knows that it is pointless, he will still try to move from the place and run to stop this girl. After all, that roar made it clear that his level of mastery is much higher than theirs, and that girl is an idiot. Even if he helps her, the chance of victory is slim, but if he acts together with all three of them, they can escape and survive. But the problem was that this guy Dawes, or whatever his name is, he doesn't think he'll be willing to cooperate. Even if it doesn't work, he has the highest agility score among them, and when it's time to escape, he'll be safe. Just when the paralysis finally disappeared, the hero realized he could move out, just decided to check the status of that monster. But when he looked up, he saw the terrifying monster, and couldn't understand if he was being mocked now, and what he could possibly think of looking at it, because his chance of winning is simply zero, and remembering the words he had said to himself earlier, that they should have realized by the roar, and if they acted together, they would drive this monster away. But now he realized that he had been too naive, and that what he had imagined the monster to have was a little smaller. And at that moment, a divine voice began to tell our hero to run away from here as fast as he could with all his might. The hero realized that obviously his stats are 3 times higher than his, and the fact that he has no useful skills is how to go, and that it's not possible at all. If he stays here, he's a litter, and he needs to hurry up and get out of here. But as soon as the monster turned his head, he still didn't notice our hero, but he was distracted by some strange sound behind his back. And looking at what distracted him, he saw this girl who was lying on the ground, and saw that she was now unconscious, but still breathing and not thinking long. Our hero jumped into the air and began to attack that monster. Swinging his paw, he hit him with all his might with his dragon strike. But still he did only a little damage to this monster, and as soon as he paid attention to him, he realized what kind of monster it was, because his body began to tremble from just his one look, but the divine voice kept telling our hero to run away. But the hero told the divine voice to shut up because he can't leave the one who saved his life, and that his heart is not afraid of these monsters. Jumping aside, he started shouting at the monsters to run after him and attack him elsewhere, because he is really tasty. He realized that he can't let fear own him, and he has to calm down and think about what to do next, because the difference in stats is really huge. His first ones he shouldn't fall under his attacks, and the fact that agility is the only thing they have a small difference in, and he has to take advantage of it. And as soon as the huge monster struck our hero, realized that it was close and that he could see it only by the corner of his eye, but still managed to dodge by jumping aside. But the hero realized that besides the fact that he was paralyzed and that he couldn't move normally, and that it was magic, he saw that old man Gans and realized that he couldn't think about it because it was too dangerous. After turning his head, the hero decided that he had to find the other guy, but he was not far from the tree, and that he was still alive but stuck under the tree, and that the yogurt rescue would take a little time. But at least he realized he couldn't carry both of them on his back and run away. He'd only have one option. In the fact that he uses the perfect move since he was an egg, and a skill that reduces the enemy's agility and attack power, and after rolling a few more times, the hero realized that, at this rate, his concentration will be reduced, and in any case, he needs to get this monster away from here and then escape. In that way, he'll get him to back off and go back for those two people, and he'll have a chance to save them. And as soon as the huge monster raised his huge paw in the air, our hero saw it, and realized that he could do it and could dodge it. And as soon as there was a huge explosion, our hero was thrown back by the shockwave, and half of his health was immediately reduced. And yet it was an earthquake skill, and the hero couldn't realize if it was real, that he had an attack covering the area around him. And it's not a direct hit, so it's going to be shallow early on, but he can't completely dodge a hit like that. But when he saw that he was near the girl again, he began to make a decision that he could not let the monster come near him, because by doing so, he could cause more damage to the girl. And that if that monster uses that attack again, they'll all die here. And as soon as again the huge wave after the earthquake threw our hero aside, he looked at Maria and saw that she is still alive. And now it is all or nothing, even if it is only her, he must do something to save her. Well, the monster started to slowly open his huge mouth, but the hero realized that he was using the bite skill, and that now is his chance. As soon as he opened his huge Easter fully, our hero jumped up and gave him a dragon strike. Suddenly, the huge monster began to lose his balance, and the hero began to shout at him that no matter how hard he was on the inside, his mouth could be damaged, and grabbed the girl and put her on his back. He realized he had to hurry because he wasn't too badly hurt and he needed to escape, while he was confused, and that this was his only chance. And looking at the monster, he realized that his recovery was too fast, and he had had enough. Now he had to clean it up, and run like he'd never run before, because the monster was slowly starting to pay attention to him again. He ran into the forest and the monster did not pursue him, but when he looked at the girl, he realized that because of the bleeding, her life is slowly dwindling, and at this rate, she will definitely die. And remembers that moment where they came from when he met the 3 hunters? After all, they weren't really tired and there's probably a human settlement nearby. If he takes her there, maybe someone will find a doctor who can use recovery magic. And as he turned onto the path, he realized that this was the way these hunters had started to go. But the girl slowly began to open her eyes and saw that she was alive, but still didn't understand where she was. A little while later, our hero still reached the village and realized that he had done it, but he did not have much time left, because he must call someone to help the girl. And I start shouting at the top of my voice if anyone is here. But the strength was leaving our hero. He was already at his limit, but inside the village people heard him and started to come out little by little. And as soon as they saw the girl and they started to talk about something, but our hero realized that they are wrong, because he does not understand what they said, but probably they did not understand everything when they saw that he is near the badly wounded Maria. And while they were throwing stones at him, he realized that it might be hopeless, but he had to explain everything to them. But he thought it was a mistake, because more and more stones were flying. And running into the woods, he realized that of course Not So reacted when he saw the monster near the bloody girl, and that he was worried about her, but he cannot do anything more, and he did a good job. But still, he is still annoyed by the fact that he is very weak. He needs to get stronger as soon as possible, serious enough to protect those who would be around him. And while he slept, the notification system began to show that he had again been awarded a new rank of first-level spirit aid, and a tiny hero of first level as well. The next day, Maria began to slowly recover, resting on a bed in one of the buildings in the village. And jumping up from her seat, she began to twist her head around, not realizing where she was now. But when she looked forward, she saw her old acquaintance who started telling her that it looked like she was still asleep, and she had been seriously injured, and that she had stopped the bleeding while she had been asleep for 2 days. But Maria didn't fully understand where she was, and did she really go back to the village again? But the other girl started shouting that Rose was such an idiot and went deep into the forest and acted on his own. And who would have expected him to actually start fighting a stone dragon? But Maria suddenly started asking the girl what happened to her partners, but she said they were both dead. And the fact that Grunz's body was found dead in the woods, Dawes's body wasn't found, but was probably eaten by monsters, and that she was the only one who survived. But that fact really upset her. But the girl went over to Maria and stroked her head and told her she'd done a good job, and now she needed to rest, and that she was really glad she'd been saved. But Maria couldn't understand what had happened, and that she had gone into the forest, but her companion replied that this Rose is a real idiot, and she can easily see the stone dragon, and he went and dragged her student because of drunken bragging, and she doesn't want to say bad, but she thinks he's someone who shouldn't be trusted. But Maria began to ask her master if it was she who had rescued her from the forest, but Marielle replied that she meant it because she was on the outskirts of the village when they saw her, and didn't she run away on her own? But Maria thought it was impossible, because she certainly wouldn't have done it on her own, and she's sure someone brought her here. But leaving Morial said that she is probably tired, and she should wait a little, and so will heat her soup, and she needs to take care of herself, and they say later. But Maria looked out the window, began to remember that she was saved by the dragon. At this time, a battle between a huge demonic worm and our hero could be heard in the center of the forest. But still, this worm was never able to counter anything with a mighty hero's strike. You killing endlessly these worms. Hero realized that in the end, it is the most effective way to raise his level, and that he finally reached the maximum level, and that he finally fulfilled the conditions of evolution. And after that, he started going to different places to level up. And the most effective method was to capture the black worm and have him use his skill that summons his allies. And he only needed to capture one of them to get them all. He realized this old friend in the games, and it still works. And the fact that he has little or no remorse, because these monsters are just experiences to make him stronger. And as soon as the huge skull fled, our hero realized that he better not use this method anymore. After all, it was not worth the experience. And then, thanks to their precious sacrifice, he could finally evolve again. And as soon as the hero looked around, he was convinced that the terrain was clear, and he began to ask the divine voice to show him possible evolution. And immediately the notification window showed a baby dragon. This baby dragon who has continued to evolve, although he is still in the process of growing his physical abilities, have improved greatly. And there is also a marble dragon child. This dragon, whose skin has mutated into a pattern resembling water droplets. He has a higher potential for magic than other species. There is also the small dragon. It is about the same size as the smaller breeds. But unlike the fast-growing small dragon, its full maturation is very powerful. However, it does not have many evolutionary options. There is also the option to evolve him a small English dragon. He is excellent at using white magic. They often work together with humans because they are a rather friendly species, and his combat potential is not particularly high. Also, there is the dragon plague. Dragon child is the child of an evil dragon that spreads calamity. They are priority targets for destruction since their intelligence is high. They often deceive humans using the skill of human transformation. And as soon as the show ended, our hero realized that he feels that the dangerous choice among them is the Dragon of Distress. Just the name alone causes anxiety. But suddenly he realized that only now it has reached him that that dragon can take human transformation, and that if he gets it, won't he be able to visit human villages like everyone else, and the small English dragon is also attractive. But their fighting power is low, and he doesn't have many further evolutions. And even though they say they're evil dragons, he'll have one inside him. And wouldn't it be nice if he was good but in a bad body? And after much deliberation, our hero decided that he would turn into a plague dragon child. And the fact that he's finally gotten a little bigger and stronger, his pelt has also gotten a little darker, and he doesn't have a mirror, so he can't look at his whole body, but it looks pretty cool. And yet the dragon scales, powder dragon breath of foulness was evolution, a really good idea. And wondered our hero after all, just exactly the skills, incredibly disturbing. But the divine voice began to conduct a status check and says that now he can find out the details of his own skills. And the hero realized that anyway, it was time to look at these strange skills. And then he got down to the business of reading skills, where he agreed that by using dragon scale powder, he could weaken the surrounding monsters, spreading the cursed plague. And also the breath of filth is a breath attack containing a horrible disease that causes a severe condition. And in addition, it does not selectively affect any creature in the vicinity. And it is said that 000 years ago, an evil dragon destroyed the happiest country in history with this skill. But still our hero knew that there was nothing he could do. He still chose this form for human transformation, and the next evolution should fix everything. But suddenly he noticed that the most important thing is the human transformation is missing in the status, and that no matter where he looks, it is not in his skills. But not understanding what it could mean, our hero decided to ask the voice of a god, but he said he couldn't explain. Our hero kept yelling why he thought he had chosen such a dangerous evolution, but the voice of the boa once again said he was unable to explain. But our hero went on to say that he should have chosen a small English dragon, and that he needed to raise his level or fulfill some other condition to change it. And now when he thinks about it, God's voice doesn't interfere with it like last time. And does that mean he doesn't care? When he picks a plague dragon child, or is God's hair really evil? Maybe he used a human transformation to apply it, and then he looked up the details for getting a good evolution, and learned what was important, and hopefully his titles like Path of Evil or Tiny Hero would affect his evolution next time, since our hero decided he wouldn't become an evil dragon. And in any case, he has to level up first. And when he looked at the details of his skills, he found that 2 of them increase his dragon experience, a skill that reduces the amount of experience points needed, and also facilitates resistance improvement, and also a walking egg that doubles the experience he gets, and he wants to level up quickly, because as he is back at level 1, his stats have decreased. And that if he faced a strong monster right now, the result would be too horrible. But as soon as he came out from behind the trees, he realized that he was in some strange situation, because he could not move. And at that moment in front of him appeared a huge spider, that was 17th level out of 40, and looking at his horrifying eyes and jaw, he realized that he cannot look at this horror. He needs to get out quickly, but stuck in the web, he realized it's not that simple, and he probably won't be able to choose. And that guy is nothing like the spiders he knows. And isn't he in the deep woods right now? A knight using his skill, our hero decided that he would definitely not let something disgusting eat him. And once the crafting was done, he began to use his childish dragon's breath and aim straight at the creepy thing that was running at him. And then there was a huge explosion that caused red flames to fly towards the hero. But he was lucky enough to have a new skill to resist fire. But still looking at his enemy, he realized that the difference in stats was too great, and the smartest thing to do right now is to run away. But still, the spider with the help of his huge paws began to move with the same speed as our hero is running away from him. And running away realized that everything is the same over and over again, and it feels like now the spider will catch up with him. But as soon as the skill of rolling acquired, the 2nd level of the hero began to clean even faster, with shouts for him not to come near him when that he is scared. But suddenly it realized that it can't stop its rolling skill, and it has no other choice but to do it, because the spider wants to stick to the same speed as itself. But it would seem all very simple to escape from the spider. But before our hero appeared a huge cliff, and he realized that if he changed direction now, he'd catch up with him. But if he jumped over the cliff, he could escape. And he assures himself that he can weave and he can fly if he can't, and that he can't fly. And now that he thinks about it, he has flight, but still he didn't fully understand what he should do. For he has no other choice, and he will definitely be able to block off. But still he managed to jump to the other side, and as soon as he stopped, he began to turn his head around and see if he had broken away from his pursuers. But that wasn't the end of it, because he saw the spider and his friends make a spider's web bridge and start moving on it. And such a turn of events our hero certainly did not expect. He was in a complete panic. Watching what was happening, I do not know what to do. After all, he couldn't imagine such a thing. Not that it's at all impossible for a spider, and that why is this happening at all? Why are there so many monsters in this forest, and are they no longer have anyone to hunt? And that walks, he apologizes to all the monsters he has defeated. Now his ass is on fire. And he's even gone through evolution, but nothing's changed. It's like some kind of weird déjà vu. Well, running away, he did realize that when he was developing, his stats had dropped, and then if he raised them, he could immediately become stronger. And at that moment he came up with a plan of action. For the dark worm had now appeared before him, and now it had already found its first victim, and as soon as he destroyed it, he got his 13 units of experience. But with the help of his walking egg skill, he doubled the experience gained and hung his title up to level 2. And continuing to kill countless monsters on his way, he kept getting his 12 and 6 units of experience, which doubled with his skill. His hit-and-run style was great and raised his level to 8. He realized that now his stats were almost even with the spiders that were chasing him. And what he's not going to say now is that it's enough. But if he tries more, then he can face other powerful enemies, and then everything will be too terrible. And yet he can burn. It has resilience, so he can confront it. And besides, his main attack comes from his mouth, if he's paying attention. And at that moment, the spider began to use its toxic poison skill. But the hero realized that this toxic poison is eating into this fog, and he can't see properly, and that he can't know where that spider is going to attack him from. And now the situation is a little worse than it was before. Well, once the fog cleared, the hero saw that the spider wasn't moving, and he was just observing the situation. All because the spider didn't know that he has resistance to poison, and he's waiting for me to be weakened. And if he just doesn't react, he'll be even more wary. And the fact that the other monsters don't have status checks, then in that case he can throw out such a fluke. And pretending that he was in a lot of pain, and that he was suffocating, he began to slowly approach the spider. And when he was convinced that he really believed it, he started throwing punches. And after a few blows, our hero jumped into the air and saw that his back was open, and with the strongest blow, he destroyed the spider. And immediately after that, his title of liar started to increase to level 2. And activating his roll skill, he began to finish off the spider that was barely alive. When he got to the finish line, he flew a few more meters up the hill and decided he was going to swat him. And once the spider was definitely destroyed, the notification system started showing the hero that he had gained the Dragon Tail skill. And also he had gained 104 units of experience. And with great difficulty, he began to realize that he had finally done it, and that he finally got level 14. But however, to win, he was too tired and took a lot of damage, realizing that he wants to get stronger, but he's in too much of a hurry, and it's all for nothing if he dies in the process. He needs to be careful. There's still a lot of dangerous monsters and things in this forest. After wandering through the forest for a long time, he found a secluded cave that he realized he could hide from his enemies. And the next day the hero woke up and realized that he had finally regained his full strength, and that it's been a long time since he slept so soundly, although he accidentally found this cave when he was raising his level yesterday. He needs a bed for a good night's sleep, and for the moment he'll make it in his base operation. And at the very least he can use this cave to sleep, though he used to live in the house like a human being. But I think he realized that there's no way I can get real cloth, but he can get some animal skin to sleep on, and he can carve a picture on the wall or something. When everything is perfect, when a man walks into this cave, he'll realize that everything is civilized, and that will mean he'll be able to communicate with people. That would be the best result if they thought something like that. And when he had completely decided everything, he started to get down to business to fully reconstruct everything. And today, he will be looking for a good hide while he hunts small animals. But suddenly he paid his attention to some strange puddle that seemed to be moving. And suddenly he realized that could it really be some kind of monster? But still he decided to check its condition in advance. and tried to the notification showed that he could not get the relevant information, but immediately after that, his head began to split, and his eyes seemed to light up with pain. And once the status window reached level 4 and immediately after that level 5, our hero couldn't understand what was going on here. But when he looked at that strange substance, he saw some strange hieroglyphics on the notice window, and all he understood from it was that it was some kind of slime, but still he couldn't quite figure out what was going on. Well, the notification window began to show that he was able to acquire resistance to fear, and his role skill had reached level 4. Hiding behind a tree, he couldn't understand what the hell was going on, because he felt like when a computer gets infected with a virus, and that he was scared shitless. And looking at this slime, I saw that there was some kind of friendly aura emanating from it, and it didn't look like a bad connection at all, and that he ran reflexively, but he could fill in some gaps in this corrupted text. And there was no reason to run. Even if he was called a coward, he couldn't help it. But our hero realized the fact that he is very much not careful, and he was just surprised because the status check didn't work, and if he hadn't looked at those messed up stats, he would have stayed calm. And does that slime have the skill to hide his stats? But now that the status check has reached level 5, he can find information about the items he received, or has received more details. Gathering his thoughts, he realized that finally the status window was finally his lifeblood, and he decided to try it out on mushrooms first. And in front of him opened a notice window where it was written that the light fungus is a parasitic fungus that sucks the nutrients from the host's tree, its roots and branches causing the host to wither, so they are really nutritious and even taste good. However, they have a small amount of paralysis herb. They stole this poison from somewhere else just in case. So they are real. And then the hero realized that it's really convenient when he knows which ones are poisonous. And at that moment, he started looking at another mushroom. And as soon as the notification window opened, he saw that it is a high-class delicacy, because it tastes like meat. It becomes a monster that attacks people as soon as it grows, but its flavor also matures. The issue of its use in human food is ethical. And when he had finished reading, he began to move on to another mushroom, which she said was a rare red fruit used to make another spice, which is also called red gold dust. However, since they are difficult to grow in remote areas, they are becoming more and more scarce. So it's only a matter of time before they die out if he finds it. His conscience allows him to pick it. The next was, that's the poisonous plant is an unusual plant that is tried by animals. It stores any salt it can't digest in its roots, so the soil becomes rich and contains a lot of salt. Many people have died trying to get this salt because of its rarity, so no one knows the origin of this salt. It didn't matter to our hero because he would eat anything but edible. And to put it bluntly, he doesn't have the luxury of being picky, because there are so many delicious mushrooms in this forest. And he's also found one amazing mushroom, and this mushroom is worth so much that if cultivation is successful, it could even cause budget cuts for the entire country. It resembles another type of poisonous mushroom that is much more widespread, which changes their location. And picking these guys up, he realized that this could be the ticket out of this quagmire, and that he had now done a great job with his status check. But suddenly he saw another notice, that it's a hallucinogenic mushroom, so consumption can lead to extreme euphoria. And it is also very toxic and harmful, so the country has publicly banned the possession and use and cultivation of this mushroom. And moreover, if he sits it dry, not even a big charm, and its effectiveness increases tenfold, so it is the most valuable drug on the black market. Eventually our hero realized that these woods are dangerous, and that this forest is dangerous in many ways, and he doubts he would be alive right now if it weren't for status checks, and the fact that he can pick a few edible mushrooms on the way home, and his main job is gathering supplies for repairs. But at that moment he noticed something strange, some strange pot in the shape of a bear, and thinking that could it be some discarded ornament, and could it be that someone from the village had made this? Because it looks like he can still use this pot, and he could use it to store food, and that wouldn't be a bad thing since it's a clay pot, and he'll definitely bring it back. But a little later, But still he couldn't figure out what to do with this useless bear ornament, because it's so poorly made. Our hero decided that he was preferring to leave it, for if he fixed it up a bit it might look good near the cave entrance. Looks near the entrance to the caves, and actually it's not so bad. It will make the cave easily visible to those who pass by, and another step towards civilized life. Well, as soon as he approached the pot, he got a huge blow, because of which he started to fly away, and standing up on his feet, he could not understand what happened. But in front of him immediately appeared the horned turtles, whose level was 17 and 19, and he couldn't imagine that they all came to life as himself, as the bear's parliament, whose level was 25. And looking at all this, he couldn't believe his eyes, because these creatures can imitate things, and who would have thought that they would take on such an appearance, and he wondered if there was anyone else besides him who could have fallen for such a catch. And yet their defense is so high that 3 against 1 is not fair, and our hero couldn't understand what he should do, although he is still stronger than every life except the bear, and besides defense, the turtles have lower stats than him, and our hero wondered if he could kill them with one blow. But the thing was, they all bite, but he looked at them and couldn't figure out where their teeth were. And it was the same with those turtles. They were kind of weird. And in general, our hero could not understand what was going on with these strange cries. After all, they annoyed her too much, and that if he understood correctly, the little stone dragon was stronger than these guys. But now he decided it was worth testing which of them was stronger, and how much he himself had changed. And accelerating from his seat, our hero began to shout that first of all, they were only dead turtles, and with the help of his dragon strike he began to deal damage to his opponent. But after a few blows, the turtle began to fly off to the side, and our hero still wasn't done yet. Well, at that moment there was a huge bear that hit the ground and threw our hero a few meters back. And everything would have been fine, but our hero realized that his arms hurt like hell, and these turtles are too hard. But still he decided to check that after those blows he must have cut a good chunk of their lives. But looking at the notice window, he saw that he had only scored 6 points out of 47, and after that he could not believe his eyes, because could it be some kind of joke, began to say to himself under his nose, because could it be that Turtle knows how to use restorative magic, and looked at his notification window and saw the skill. He saw that he has a recovery of the 1st level. Or our hero, it wasn't funny at all, because he may die before he defeats them. Or most likely his hands may fall off from the pain even before that, and he cannot even pick up the right blow, and the fact that his breath is also not much damage them, and now he needs to figure out how to defeat these opponents, But before he could make up his mind, the turtle came flying toward him at full speed. Well, as soon as our hero threw it back, he saw that they had just been damaged, but yet now he can clearly see their cracks. And grabbing one of the turtles, he realized that if they're both equally hard, then they should only attack each other with the help of... And as soon as the hero activated his gravity acceleration skill, he threw the turtle with all his might at another turtle that was on Earth. But as soon as the turtles collided, they flew away from each other with all speed, and another turtle crashed straight into the bear and damaged his huge paw, and after destroying the turtles, our hero began to gain experience. And then the notification window began to show that he had gotten the shooting star skill. And our hero, seeing this, wondered if it had really turned into a skill. Even if he just flew and threw it down, and really this skill is incredibly powerful. But at this point there was only one last opponent left, and that was Bear. But what was more surprising was that the bear also had a regenerative skill like the stone dragon, but the hero realized that if he didn't finish him off at once, the fight would eventually drag on and put him at a disadvantage. But at that moment something flew into him. I couldn't understand what it was and what hit him, but it was one of the turtles, and yet he had killed one and the other was still alive, and now it was speeding straight at our hero. But then he realized that it meant that the experience points he'd gotten earlier were from beating up just one of them, and that he hadn't been careful, and what's more important than that, he'd just hit him now. After all, judging by the name, it makes him slower, that it will hook him again. Realized that he will not have time to dodge again, because this turtle did it again, and our hero's body cannot react in time. Meanwhile, The bear began to wander around and wait to attack our hero from underhandedly. And as soon as he was at our hero's back, he began to activate his transformation skill and devour mode. But Hero couldn't figure out what was going on. And is this bear really using his bite like that? And now he finally has his teeth. And because of the turtle that hit flying towards the bear who was already waiting to leave, and he realized that if it's what's right, if he gets eaten and he's finished. But when he grabbed the turtle, he started to turn around and throw it at the bear so he could eat it first. The bear has started to show his full version of his transformation and is getting even more terrifying. Well, our hero looked at the bear with surprise because he realized that he could no longer look at it, and that he can still call himself a bear when he turns himself into a bug-like monster bear. And as soon as he hit the ground with his huge paws, our hero bounced to the side and realized that his slowdown was finally over. And the fact that he has transformational recovery and terrible destructive power, and the fact that he thought if he let things go, he'd be in serious trouble, and that he's about to hit him right in the center with his shooting star. And jumping a few dozen meters into the air, our hero decided to finish him off with one punch. And the fact that he can jump higher than before, as his flight level has risen. If he attacks from such a height, he will not miss. And as soon as the hero was in the ground, he realized that he had finally won, and was able to get 338 experience points, and that he had reached the 33rd level. He was very excited because he finally got a lot of experience. And the fact that he finally got the Nutcracker skill. It was a different skill for flying kicks, and with this skill, the recoil will be quite high, but the power also increases dramatically. And the fact that he could make this skill crucial, but it can only be used when he has something he can carry with him in the air. But as soon as he raised his head, saw that a huge pot turtle appeared in front of him, and he could not understand whether it was because of the group's summoning skill, and was recognized as a large turtle, and realizing that he cannot waste his time and began to attack him. But after a few blows he realized that he cannot penetrate his armor, and whether he will have to run away. But the turtle suddenly began to accelerate, and at full speed to run forward. But when he looked up, he saw a strange black lizard up there, but he didn't understand what was about to happen, and maybe it saved his life. After all, that black lizard was kind of weird, and seemingly without offense, and that a moment ago she saved his life, and that our hero couldn't understand why or how it happened at all. But as soon as the black lizard got close to him, it suddenly decided to bite him on his paw, causing him to feel a huge pain in his whole body. But still, he began to realize that there is no damage from the bite. Is it really playing with him? But the notification window began to show that he has resistance to poison, and it has reached the 4th level. But then the notification window also showed that our hero is now in a state of poisoning, and his condition is very serious. Well, looking at how the lizard jumped aside, he began to realize that he had become careless after winning the battle, and his opponent was a monster after all. Well, looking at his notification window, he realized that it was a kind of Bilan princess or something, in normal condition, and his level was 19th out of 35, and judging by the stats, he realized that it was very fast. And look even more closely, he realized all her skills they were going, and that they were not at all unpleasant like his skills. You wondered if it could be cured in the usual way. It easily passed through his resistance to level 3 poisons, and it's an extremely dangerous skill, and the fact that his head hurts, and he's going to be nauseous. But when he looked at the black lizard, he realized that it had simply run away. At the same spot, our hero couldn't understand what had just happened, but at least he could catch his breath now. He didn't have to fight anymore, but a divine voice started to say that Princess Rasherta is an insidious monster who poisons her victim, and then removes after I weaken the victim, she comes back and eats her. And then our hero realized that just as he thought the effect of this something would not go away in time, he also has more information. In addition, she purposely uses strong poisons to create an even stronger poison inside her body. But our hero realized that there's no way he'd be lucky enough to find a plant with an antidote effect or something like that. However, she has the ability to create an antidote to her own venom, so if caught by a strong enemy, she can trade the antidote for her life. This creature is really a lizard, and it's amazing. But thanks to this, he now knows what he has to do. And most likely the lizard is hiding somewhere nearby, waiting, and all he has to do is catch it forced to give up the antidote. And he's very sure he can hear or smell her. And he's not good at tracking after ladies. And in his case, it's impossible to find the trace of an enemy he's already lost. And that our hero has survived so long because he has run away from danger, time after time. And he knows how those who run away think. Simply put, it's an asshole using hit-and-run tactics, and you have to be really smart to understand the concept of negotiation and exchange. And she'll never show her face until the poison has done its work. But at the same time, it would be bad for her to lose sight of her prey. So if the victim tries to escape, she'll follow her. And what it may look like is foolishness. But he runs to the side to get the lizard to follow him. If he's wrong, he'll die. But given its sudden appearance behind the giant pot turtle, there's a good chance he's right. And as soon as our hero stepped out into the open, he realized he'd have a good view. And from here, he can definitely counterattack if he sees that black lizard hiding behind the tree. And as soon as he saw her at all speed, began to improve directly on it with his skill of rotation. But the lizard was not so stupid, because she also knew how to use his skill of rotation and began to run away at all his speed from our hero. Doesn't want the hero to realize that if he moves in a straight line, the difference in mobility won't allow him to catch up with her. However, her rotation is level 3, and his is level 4, and when it comes to braking, he's better. And besides, different ground affects endurance differently. And since he's behind her, he can adjust and drive her into an abandoned trail. And the fact that all you have to do is guide her to that cliff. He jumped over, escapes the spider, and he'll corner her and capture her alive. But however, this lizard is very good. And even though it's all over for her, if she gets caught, she remains very calm. And she has noticed the effect of different ground on speeds, and carefully chooses the path she rolls on. And the fact that he uses the same treatment as him, and also has the title Cowardly Chicken, and she survived in the same environment as him. And despite their differences, he feels a kind of sympathy for her. And that if he gets the antidote, he'll end things peacefully. But he doesn't see how he can live to see it. But at that moment, the notification window showed that his rotation had reached level 5, and he realized that this would give him a significant advantage, and it looked like he could catch her before they reached the cliff. But at that moment, our hero friend stopped, and he realized that she had gotten it, and this stone is most likely from the clay cannon to know that she can use another skill while spinning. And what one column the lizard caught, and even more so, it struck as soon as he was sure he would win. And as he thought, this black lizard was different from the other monsters he had fought before, but now was not the time to be impressed by its skills, as it was running further and further away. But to the end, our hero could not understand what he should do with this poisoning. If he loses her light, and he left for only a little time, having overstretched his arm, he needs to find an antidote, and he can hardly feel his left arm anymore. And maybe he should go to the village and look for someone who can make an antidote. But it won't work, because he looks much more dangerous and strong than before, and they'll kill him without even talking to him. But maybe he should look for a plant with antidote properties. But I realized it's unlikely he'll find anything suitable, and that plan is out too. But still, maybe he should cut off his arm before I spread throughout his body. In his fantasy world, maybe the arm will grow back when he evolves or when he changes shape. But before he does, he'll have to stop bleeding if he can't. He'll just bleed out. But when he realized that all his options were simply unsuccessful, he knew it was over if he let her get away now. After all, he's already driven her to the cliff, and there's no need to try to catch her before then. When he catches up with her, he has to be ready, because what happens after? And now he has to show that he can survive at least one blow to the black lizard. And as the chase began again, our hero saw that the lizardmen began to attack him running away. But it was all overconfident because he thought he would break through its attacks. And in the process, he thought about how many lives he still had left. There must be very few after all, the crawfish. But he wouldn't check them. But if he kept going at this pace, he felt he'd do well. But as expected, she too has confused her blood toll, and now she is shooting rocks in all directions. It's too good to be the one when he is being chased, and he can tell that the end of the chase is nigh. However, he continued to underestimate that black lizard. This has been going on since the beginning of their meetings, and he has a strange liking for her, and this has allowed her to outsmart him. Perhaps subconsciously he desires companionship with someone deep in his heart, but he started thinking about stupid things again, and he was too distracted. Well, it's to be expected, and he fears him in one battle after another, and then he was poisoned, and it all continues even now, and yet now he has to focus on the shore, and he's almost at the cliff. He needs to hold out a little longer. And no matter how fast she is, there is no chance that the black lizard is on one physical power. And for that reason, she has nothing to do but turn around, which causes her to slow down. So most likely she will again use the clay cannon to buy time just like before. Or will he break through with his rotation? And will the clay cannon restore it? And as he continued to catch up, he thought about the fact that he was looking at the black lizard, and it just had to wait, and it wouldn't slow down, and realized that it didn't know that there was a cliff ahead, but still realized that there was no other way out. If she falls off the cliff, what will he do with his poisoning? And I don't understand what's going on, because he should have chased her through a path that would have given her more visibility, as if he could afford such a thing. I'll tell you. And as soon as I think you got to the cliff, she started to fall down. But on the fat, I noticed that his antidote was just about to fly off into the abyss. And jumping with all his might, he still managed to praise her. And as soon as they got to the other side, our hero fell to the ground and stopped moving, because he realized he had reached his limit, or it had come undone. But still he decided that he had to gather his strength. If he could catch her now, it was useless, because he realized he couldn't move. Well, looking at the lizard, he couldn't understand why she wasn't running away yet. Maybe. And if he was on death's doorstep, and he really didn't like the fact that she was looking down on him now. At this time inside the forest, Mary reasoned that Marielle was telling what she thanked God could handle the dark worms, and the fact that dungeon monsters appear by rank depending on the danger dark worms F rank. They are harmless enough that even ordinary people can handle them. Although they are really nasty. F rank. Even ordinary people can handle them. F rank. An intermediate level. Adventurer can handle them 1D rank, plus a few ordinary adventurers can handle them. If they work together, an experienced adventurer can handle them. I will go C rank, a group of experienced adventurers can handle them. But they must prepare well. And the fact that Davison could single-handedly defeat even rank E monsters. But even so, he's no match for a stone dragon. And when Maria started asking local people if they had seen Dawasana, they said they had seen him when they were fishing on a lake near the town not too long ago. And he was in a thicket on the other side of the forest, and he was looking at him motionless, and he had a creepy look. His skin was a strange color. And while he was thinking whether to call him or not, he disappeared into the forest. But Maria could not understand what it is really alive. But the man who was near the old man began to tell him that such stories he makes Maria worried, and she should not pay attention to him, because the old man is always drunk. But the old man kept saying that it wasn't a dream, and he told him that he wasn't a number. Then I realized that then he could survive why he didn't go back to the village but stayed in the forest, and isn't that strange? But the man said that first of all he had no chance of surviving the fight with the stone dragon, and no proof that the ghost exists. But Maria didn't understand. If she somehow managed to survive, there's a chance that her partner survived too, although she doesn't understand why he didn't return to the village. And then if he didn't have a healer with him, they both might die. And after he said that, she was forced to join them. And if she had firmly refused and stopped them, this wouldn't have happened. And the village will not send a search party to such a dangerous place without good reason. From the start, they only sort of believed her when she told them about the dragon, if she doesn't go looking for it herself. Then besides, if she can the dragon that saved her, she'd be fine as long as she didn't go too far. And she knew there shouldn't be any dangerous monsters here. But at that time, our hero was lying on the ground and looking at the lizard. I don't understand why it stayed near him.